Howdy y'all, it's me, American Ranger Rhoku here. I love RPGs. I love RPGs. Some of the best games of all time are RPGs. A good role-playing game is an amazing experience that will consume your life by taking you to a whole nother world, with you riding through the story and exploring said world. One of the most important things about a game in general is how you feel while playing it, as that feeling is ultimately what resonates with the player and what sticks with you long after you finish the game. Do you feel like a wanderer of the Wasteland who has been given a chance to change the world with your decisions? Do you feel like a gruff and tough cowboy man trying to make sure that his family survives in a world that no longer wants them around? Or do you feel like someone who's been thrust into a bad spot, with you trying to make sense of what's going on as you find out about a larger plot you play an important part in? There is an RPG, however, that is not brought up enough in conversations like this, where the primary feeling that you get while playing can be summarized by one word, and that word is badass. Wasteland 3 is a game by In Exile Entertainment that came out 3 years ago, and everything in the game, including its gameplay, the story, the world, the music, oozes an insane amount of coolness that you very rarely experience when playing video games. So come on Rangers, time to gear up, get into the Kodiak, and ride through the snow, righting wrongs and helping the downtrodden as we find out why Wasteland 3 is the most badass RPG of all time. The opening cinematic takes place in a cold, wintry snowscape, with some narration to give us context. The Rangers are traveling through the area in a caravan to get to Colorado. All seems fine until we're treated to this shot of this creepy doll head, which might suggest that things are about to get messy. They come across more of these things as they drive through a frozen lake. It is then revealed that they're actually explosives. The Rangers ran right into a planned ambush, with most of them being taken out. You are then treated to a character customization menu, where you create 2 of the few remaining survivors. With your 2 newly created Rangers, you have to fight through the area, with the game using it as a tutorial. It teaches you the basics of combat, and shows you that there are multiple ways to solve a problem instead of just direct violence, like trying to save your comrade who's being held at gunpoint, or trying to get through this giant spider mech. Then you get to the rooftop of this dam, with you fighting the first of many epic battles you're going to in the game. After trying but failing to save the person who helped you in the fight, you move on to an area that you're going to be well acquainted with, Ranger HQ. We are then greeted by this guy called the Patriarch, who gives us an old base of his to act as our headquarters. Once you bring the base back online, the Patriarch comes in and gives you the main mission of the game. The main reason that we are here is because the Patriarch wants us to capture and detain his children, all of whom are plotting against him. In exchange for doing so, the Patriarch will send food and supplies back home where it is desperately needed. He also gives us the first quest of the game, where we ride into town and help the sheriff with some gang problems. Sounds like the perfect job for us Rangers, Mr. Patriarch. Alright boys, gear up. Let's go. Hold up, who's this Patriarch guy and why do we have to listen to him? And also, who even are the Rangers? The eagle-eyed among you might notice that this game is Wasteland 3, meaning that there is a 2 and a 1. Let's briefly cover the story until now so that we're all up to speed. The Rangers are a paramilitary organization that act as your typical good guys. They right wrongs, beat up gangs, and protect the innocent. In the previous game, the Rangers had to save the entire world by nuking their main base to stop a rogue AI from spreading. This obviously led to them struggling to build back up as their entire head of operations was destroyed. This is where Saul Buchanan, otherwise known as the Patriarch, comes into the picture. The Patriarch rules over Colorado, and he does so with an iron fist. Now normally the Rangers wouldn't deal with such a person, but capturing a few crazy people in exchange for survival doesn't sound like a bad deal. Well, that's enough of a reason for me. Let's go Rangers. The first cool thing that the game hits you with right out of the gate is how amazing the music is.
Would you have freedom from weight slavery? Staying is marching on. I am washed in.
Now I'm no music critic, but man, these songs are awesome. I have like half this game's soundtrack in my day-to-day playlist. And on top of being such amazing pieces of music, these tracks fit really well with the theme of the game. This wasteland that you're walking through is what's left of old America, which is quite fitting since most of these songs are actually redone covers of super old American classics. And not only that, it really drives forward this idea of the inherent nostalgia everyone has for the way the old world used to be. Now, you won't get a lot of this when talking about a random raider that you just shoot across the road, but when it comes to the major players and factions, it's all over the place, including the Rangers, who carry themselves in a very idealistic, heroic way. The Patriarch himself isn't shy from using such imagery, given that his throne is the most American thing I've ever seen. I heavily recommend for you to go check these songs out because they might find a new home in your personal playlist. They did for mine, and man, I've never listened to these kinds of songs before in my life, and I love them. Now that we're reinvigorated by the awesome tunes blasting in our ears, let's continue. As we try to leave Ranger HQ, we're given the option to manage our party. In Wasteland 3, your squad can have up to 6 people. The 4 of them are custom-made Rangers in that they'll be with you no matter what, whereas the 2 additional slots are taken up by companions you can pick up throughout the game. Your own actions in the story determine whether some of these characters are available to you or not, and in some cases, if you do something crazy, they might just leave. Now, you can still get more companions, or followers rather, like animals you can tame in certain levels, but these aren't really player-controlled characters, but more so just AI characters that are on your team. Heading downtown, we're given a bunch of jobs to do by the sheriff, and after completing them, we are given our first major quest of the game: Big Trouble in Little Vegas. What we're going to do here is use it as an example to display how amazing the quest design is for the rest of the game. While we were off getting ambushed in the snow, a gang called the Dorseys had raided Colorado Springs, which is your main city area. A guy that we rescued from one of our previous jobs had told us that someone within Brian Fargo's organization had helped the Dorseys in their raid. Brian Fargo is the guy in charge of Little Vegas, the most popular nightclub in all of Colorado Springs. I made a little error in this part of the video because the guy who owns the club is Farron Brygo. The CEO of the company that made Wasteland 3 is called Brian Fargo, so I made that mistake, sorry, but let's just continue with the video. The sheriff also told us that she sent an undercover agent to the area called Delgado and she hasn't heard from him since. So her job is simple: find the truth and find Delgado. When we get to the nightclub, we talk with a man named Charlie Nose. Now, Charlie hints that there might be someone in the back rooms, but to get there, we'd have to fight everyone, which is bad for reputation. To get more information, we can either go into the brothel and talk to a guy named Ken Doll, which offers up the information we need for only $100. Alternatively, we could crash a private party being held by these mercenaries and intimidate them into giving us the truth. It is revealed that Delgado, upon arriving at the club, asked too many questions and was pulled into the back rooms. When talking to Charlie, we can tell him that we know Delgado is being held at the club. He gives us a name. That name is McTavish. Their plan is that if we go to McTavish and get him to squeal, we can clear Mr. Fargo's name and get Delgado without a fight. We can find McTavish in a machine shop across town, and upon entering, we have to fight his gang. When talking to him at first, you might notice something really weird. The guy talks in a Scottish accent.
We reckon you're the ones who survived the Dorsey ambush. You killed Isaac Reed and his rich kid pals. You're bloody ruthless. Bollocks. I'm screwed.
I know it's weird, but just roll with it for now. So anyway, McTavish, upon being intimidated, gives us the truth that he in fact did help the Dorseys with the raid. He did this because the marshals had previously punished him for another crime. This punishment, by the way, is being restrained out in the freezing cold while having no clothes on for a certain amount of time. As you can imagine, this probably leads to some body parts falling off, and it happened to McTavish with his nose going the way of the wind. Homie looks like Voldemort, so whether you think it's justified or not is up to you, but we have 4 choices to make here. If you agree with his side of the story, you can simply let him go right here, or you can arrest him, sending him to Ranger HQ or the Marshal's prison. The last choice is to kill him on the spot. If we scavenge around the room that we found him in, we can find a few items of note. Number 1 is a funny tape of him practicing his Scottish accent for, I don't know, to sound unique or something.
The name's McTavish, and I'm from Glasgow way. Shit, that's not it.
And number 2 is a note that directly implicates Brian Fargo, whereas up until now, his entire defense was that he had no idea this was being done in his organization. But this note, which is a letter to McTavish, proves that he in fact did know. When you bring this note back to Sheriff Daisy, she gives you permission to kill Brian Fargo for his involvement. So now we have a choice on our hands. Do we support Brian Fargo or the sheriff? If you wish to support the marshals and bring more law and order to the area, you might want to jail McTavish and send him to them, and also go into the club to arrest Mr. Fargo. But if you're someone who's not a fan of the heavy-handed way they deal with things, then you might want to support Mr. Fargo. Either way, we go back to the club. When you get back to the club and talk to Brian Fargo, you can A, attack him, B, try to arrest him, and C, work together to scapegoat McTavish. Mind you, if you're going for that last option, you might not want to show the sheriff the note because that directly implicates Brian Fargo. Now in this situation, if you try to kill him or arrest him, it leads to a fight where you have to kill every single one of the thugs in his office. The only way to convince him to come in alive is to threaten to burn the entire club down. This can be done by accessing a computer behind this guard, which you have to distract, and then hacking the ventilation systems. Otherwise, you gotta fight this man. If you try to cut a deal with Brian Fargo, you'll find out that you're followed there by a group of marshals who demand you help them arrest him. Here, you can make either choice, but mind you that if you try to arrest him again, and you haven't done so until now, he will not go down without a fight. When all is said and done, you will have killed or arrested Brian Fargo, shutting down Little Vegas in the process, or you will have defied Sheriff Daisy and killed the marshal sent there to make sure you do your job. This is but one of the many quests that are within this game, where you have to actively think about who you're impacting with every single choice. And mind you, while covering the quest, I glossed over a few details that are interesting or entertaining in their own right. In my playthrough, I arrested him because he knew that the guy was going to help the Dorseys, but didn't tell the marshals. Now that that's done, on our way back to the Ranger HQ, we're contacted by a man named Gideon Rees. Gideon Rees is a member of the 100 Families, and he has a proposition for us. The 100 Families are basically the elites in Colorado. If we go back in time, the 100 Families were originally the families that the Patriarch united in order to fight off the gangs that plagued the area. So the basic political structure of the Colorado area is the Patriarch at the top as an authoritarian ruler, with the 100 families under him as his elites, and then the marshals who act as their muscle. The families live in this fancy place called the Broadmoor Heights right alongside the Patriarch's palace. It is our next destination, and it's made clear that regular people are not allowed to enter. Upon talking to Gideon Rees, he informs us of a refugee situation, in that there's a human smuggling operation that keeps bringing refugees to the area, even though the Colorado Springs cannot support anymore. We are tasked with finding the truth about it and stopping it. He points us towards the Bazaar, a trader's market to the east, and that's exactly where we're gonna go. But hold on there, partner. Did you think you can get through this game without any more tough choices? Well, guess what? As soon as you drive out into the open world in your truck called the Kodiak, you're given 2 distress calls, but only time to respond to 1. The first call is from marshals transporting power armor equipment. The second call is from a homestead that is currently being raided. You can only choose one, so make it a good choice. So what are you? The hero of the people or the defender of law? Irregardless of who you decide to help, the game respects your choices. Wasteland 3 is an amazing environment for roleplaying because it doesn't really hold your hands through any specific outcome. It gives you all the information you need and then allows you to do whatever you think is right. As discussed earlier, a lot of the quests in game are very much open-ended. This means that you're given the freedom to do whatever you want to or help whichever side you want to help within that area. There are also many things you can do that just completely messes everything up and causes mass chaos in the area, but these choices are permanent in that you cannot rectify them. Most of the time, when you make a mistake, you just gotta live with the consequences. This is inherent with how the speed checks are handled in-game. In a game like Fallout, aside from a few fringe cases, the dialogue options with the skill checks are usually the ones that give you the best outcome in every single situation. But here, there are many cases where, even though an option has a skill check, it might lead to an outcome that you actually don't want. Sure, there might be an option to intimidate someone into retreating, but the people that do retreat might just kill more people and be another problem for you down the line. If you're truly here to enact justice and protect, perhaps the best decision would be to kill them right here. You really gotta think about what you're gonna say instead of just mindlessly clicking through the dialogue. Sometimes the game goes out of its way to make sure that you understand your choices and you have to live with them. There are many times where your previous mistakes and actions are thrown back at your face in dialogue if the person you're talking to did not approve of them. There are also timed quests, in that if you receive a distress call and you don't respond in time, you might get back there eventually and find out that everyone there who asked for help had died or something. Areas can be made inaccessible to you, and entire factions can be hostile to you, all depending on the choices you make within the quests. This both increases replayability and strengthens the role-playing aspect. I helped the caravan with the power armor because, I'm gonna be honest, I also wanted to get it, but after that we gotta head down to the bazaar. When you get to the bazaar, you can talk to the guy at the entrance who'll tell you that there are some conspicuous individuals over at the car park. When you make your way over there, you can talk to and fight the human smugglers. It's honestly one of the tougher fights in the game, but after you're done with them, you go into this room to find the refugees. The refugees tell us that someone by the name of Mama Cotter is behind organizing all of this refugee transfer. So, we go back to the bazaar, organize a transport for the refugees, and then get back to deal with the mama herself. By this point you get the gist. We can kill her, arrest her, or work with her, depending on who we plan to work with. Mama Cotter makes it very clear that she has no intention of stopping the refugee smuggling. So, in order to make nice with 100 families, we have to arrest her. And that's what I did. Or try to, because if you offer her to the marshals, then her entire family will fight you because that's essentially a death sentence. So I had to crisp up a bunch of refugees. Light him up! Dude, he's getting all of them in this one attack. Let's set fire to a bunch of refugees, guys. Vietnam music incoming. Well, that's settled. Let's get back to old boy Gideon Rees and tell him about the mission. He's happy with the results and joins the Rangers as our political advisor. Nice. Let's pay a visit to our old pal Patriarch and tell him about what's going on. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Did that dude just greet us? In a friendly way? Whoa! Best RPG game ever! With all jokes aside, there are little things like this sprinkled all the way throughout the game because the world feels alive while you play. As you go through the game and impact the land around you in turn adapts to your choices, and things change depending on what you've done. If you roll up to an area that your choices helped, the silent NPCs will greet you nicely as you pass by, giving you discounts in their shops, and the major NPCs changing how they interact with you. Same is true for the opposite case. There are entire areas and regions that will be blocked out from you, or the people there will treat you with outright hatred and hostility in some cases because of your decisions. You'll be driving down the snowy wastelands of Colorado when you hear a radio show talk about the things you've done, with its attitude towards you changing as well. This, combined with the game making you take responsibility for the things you've done, makes the world feel immensely alive and adds a ton of replay value. Speaking of the world, the atmosphere within Wasteland 3 is built up very nicely. It has quite a unique depiction of a post-apocalyptic setting in that in most other media, such a setting would be quite grey and dull, which is honestly the point. I mean, the world has ended, life is just bandits and mutants right now. Wasteland 3 isn't like this though. It has color, it has character. There are tons of interesting stuff going on all the time, lots of silly things are being said and done by people, there are jokes everywhere, some quests are just really just dumb but you do them anyway for the fun of it. But that is not to say that the game is a circus. There are plenty of serious moments where the game does show you the horrors of the setting. It rides this fine line between a horrifying apocalypse and silliness, where you won't be sad for how the world is, and you won't really fall into a pit of just not caring about the game because of how silly and non-serious everything is. You are still immersed, you are still playing the game, you are still a part of the apocalypse, but every single moment of the game is enjoyable as you cruise through the thick snow in your cool truck, listen to some old worldly tunes in your radio, and ride into your next destination until you hear another distress call. This game's got jokes. Only assholes make fun of an orphan's dead family. Assholes like you, apparently. Inbreeding did worse things to the Hoons than we ever did, kid. Oh my god. They just got slaughtered because of me. Run him over with your car before he gets the shot off. Thump. There are tons of references and fun things everywhere, loads of silly quests and NPCs, Easter egg galore. There's a whole skill called toaster repair, which is a running joke from the first game. If you can click with the exact type of humor the game offers you, in that it's just all this silly stuff at the backdrop of this horrifying harsh world, then you will love the humor in this game. Now that we have a vengeful orphan's blood on our wheels, let's get back on the road. Our first stop is in Denver to secure the youngest child of the Patriarch, Valor Buchanan. Valor is not really someone who's a war criminal or anything like his siblings, but is basically just a spineless nerd who can very easily be manipulated. On our way there, we're stopped by someone we're probably gonna have to fight eventually, but we can't right now because of how powerful she is. Liberty Buchanan. She's the meanest and the toughest of the bunch, but we'll get to her later because for now, we are granting her the mercy of allowing her to walk away alive. As soon as we reach the area, we are treated to a mock trial of sorts, carried out by, Ronald Reagan? Or at least a robot version of him. I see his love for communism is as clear as ever.
It is irrelevant whether one is communist. Communist? Communist?
Denver is one of the more important areas in the entire playable area because it is the primary oil supplier of the Colorado region. The main issue being that they've recently stopped. So the things that you do in the area will have much greater consequences in the long term. The two main factions here are the Jippers and the Machine Commune. The Jippers are basically hyper-religious, old America-loving, communist-hating zealots. In fact, their entire religion is worshipping an AI version of Ronald Reagan, the same one that we saw kill that poor robot. This gets so crazy that the priest of the cult can only be female, and they're called Nancy's, after Reagan's wife in real life. It's honestly pretty crazy, but let's just see what they want. So the gist is, they want to transfer Reagan's AI mind into a human body for whatever purpose. And to do this, they need some sort of module for the machine commune. After slaughtering a gang that most definitely deserves slaughtering due to the reasons that I can't get into because I do not wish for demonetization, we arrive at the commune. Now, instead of some fearsome communist red robots we were expecting to fight, we actually came across a pretty chill group. The machine commune is honestly one of the most chill factions in the entire game. Some of the robots you interact with have more character than actual people do in real life. When speaking with them, you are informed of the angle that the machines want to play. Because Reagan is an AI, the machine commune wants us to use the module to transfer him over here so that he may be free with his robot brethren. They also inform us that whoever's body the Reagan AI will be transported into is essentially killed to make room, which honestly is kind of obvious. On your way out of the base, you are informed of the reward that you would get if you side with the machine commune, which is honestly the best follower in the entire game, Party Pal!
My friend, Party Pal.
Party Pal!
Process it. You said it. As soon as Reagan's safe and secure with us, Party Pal wants to join your ranger team. Isn't that grand?
So we get back to the Jippers with the module, and they reveal to us they're going to transfer Reagan's AI into Valor's body, effectively killing him. So now we're given 3 choices upon entering the module into the computer. Choice number 1, allow them to go through with it, securing their oil and loyalty for Valor. Choice number 2, transfer Reagan AI to Ranger HQ, with us blackmailing them in that we'll delete them if they don't give us both Valor and the oil. The last option is transferring him to the machine commune for Party Pal. The choice I made was clear from the start. Yeah, there he is! With all that said and done, let's get into why Wasteland 3 is a completely unique role-playing experience. The thing about the game is that you don't just roleplay as your squad, but you roleplay as the Rangers. This doesn't weigh on you initially in that you're basically all that's left of the Rangers, but as the game goes on, that quickly changes. The Ranger HQ gets more and more populated with recruits, and the stores sell you better equipment. Your fame increases so people tremble in their boots or rejoice when they hear your name. The choices that you make, and have made up until this point, don't just reflect on the characters you're currently controlling, but also reflect on an entire organization of people. Do you want to be known as the defenders of the defenseless, here to do justice no matter the cost? Or do you want to be known as a violent, fearless gang who'll wipe out anyone and anything that stands in their way? You go through the process of creating your own unique Ranger company, and the game shows you its growth as you go along. You not only have to think of yourself, but also the greater world with every single choice. Will this action create more or less stability? The Jippers are clearly religious and insane, but they are the ones supplying Colorado with their oil. Do you sacrifice Valor to them so they bring back Reagan? Yeah, sure, you'll get their oil and loyalty, but you also give power to an insane religious cult that will eventually grow in power to potentially become a problem at some point in the future. Do you hold the Reagan AI captive so that you get both the oil and Valor, but the Jippers will be looking at every single angle to exploit in order to get him back and betray you in the future? Or do you support the machine commune who, while they're capable of extracting the oil, they're completely fair in that they'll sell the oil to everyone, including gangs and cannibals, which also means that the main Colorado cities don't get enough oil. You can also convince a gang to move into the area and become an oil cartel. There's no clear answer here. There's no 100% good choice, and the choice that you prefer depends entirely on your worldview. My personal perspective is that supporting the Jippers is the best choice, because if you do so, you'll create an additional powerful faction in the area that'll be loyal to the Rangers, and you can never have too many powerful friends. Now imagine such a choice being made over and over again. Decisions have way more pressure as the game goes on, and the outcome of your mistakes are constantly there for you to see. Will your next decision lead to more or less prosperity in the region? Do you even want prosperity, or would you prefer to rule over the area like a ghetto version of Caesar's Legion, because there are numerous endings that let you do just that? This experience of role-playing as an entire organization that can change the destiny of the land it occupies is a very unique experience. So that's 1 down, 2 more to go. Up next we got Vic, short for Victory Buchanan, the oldest and most messed up of the 3 by far. Vic is a complete psychopath, with him killing people all over the place. He's kind of like the Joker, but without the funny plots or the sense of purpose, because the Joker does it to mess with Batman, Vic just kills people for the sake of killing people. He is one of those rare individuals who are better off 6 feet under. Vic is shacked up in a ski resort in Aspen where he's captured a bunch of hostages, including a ranger. Now he knows you're coming, so as you arrive at the lodge, you're given 2 paths to take in order to get to the lodge itself. One path is filled with his goons for you to kill, and another is a fun gauntlet of trials designed by the man himself. This gauntlet will test your problem solving skills and also how well you've leveled your characters in terms of skill checks. Once we get through the gauntlet, we're given a shortcut to the last group of men holding out just outside the entrance. Fortunately, the angle we're given is an amazing fighting position, so we make short work of them. Getting into the area, you're informed that Vic is holding a bunch of people all over the lodge hostage, and the guy holding the key to this room also holds a detonator that will kill every single one of these hostages. So you have to go through the entire lodge, saving the hostages, with each hostage having their own fun little mini-gamey way to save them. Then, we can get the key without risking any additional lives. Though you can basically just have all the hostages die by directly getting to the key, but this might not be the best idea depending on the kind of rangers you're roleplaying as. After making our way through the best goons in the area, we go inside to confront Victory. Now the dude is not only a psycho, but also just completely insane as he talks to us with this corpse puppet. You are given 3 options here. Number 1, arrest him, which is what the Patriarch wants. Number 2, kill him, which is what literally everyone else wants. Or number 3, let him join you. Victory is one of the more insane companions you can have on your squad, with you getting all sorts of reactions from everyone just by having him in your team, so it's definitely a fun thing to do for at least a run or 2. After a hard day of fighting, I do the ranger thing. We slap the cuffs on him and send him back to HQ. With us having to do a lot of fighting to get to Vic, let's talk about the combat. The combat in Wasteland 3 is one of the best I've ever seen in a turn-based combat game. Every attack, every movement looks, sounds, and feels awesome, with the dopamine hit of the criticals being insanely palpable. In addition to this, the game allows for you to get a huge variety of builds and tactics off. Do you want to be a roaming band of melee savages that just rushes the enemy down? Do you want to be a well-rounded group using all sorts of weapons that is ready no matter the fight they find themselves in? Do you have a tech-based unit that focuses on using deployed robots and hacking the enemy robots to turn the tide of battle? There are lots of ways to handle and approach combat, and you can do all these things in a single run given that you have 6 entire rangers on your team. If you don't like them, you can very easily just swap them out to one of the dozens of recruits available to you, and that isn't even counting the companions you can pick up along the way. It is not nearly as sluggish as you'd expect from a turn-based game because characters can move simultaneously. So if you're up against like 20 enemies, you don't have to wait an entire lifetime to get to your turn. There are also some special abilities and combo moves you can put together, like the ambush chain for your sniper. The basic way that this works is that if your sniper character kills a target in one shot, they can attack again at a different target in the same turn. And this goes on until your sniper either misses or runs out of bullets in my case. Alright, so we got Valor and Victory. Let's head on back to Colorado and tell the Patriarch what a good job we did. On our way back, we're informed that a genuine desert ranger had arrived at Ranger HQ, with her requesting that we meet her there. When we do, it is a woman named Connie Zeng. Connie Zeng is a member of a team of rangers sent to this area before we were, a team headed by Angela Deth. Angela Deth is a character from the older Wasteland games. She actually contacted our team multiple times throughout the story using radio transmission. She even gives you a quest to bust someone out of the Patriarch's secret prison. After meeting her in the flesh, we fully get to hear her out. When learning of the Patriarch's rule of Colorado, Angela became disillusioned with the mission of working with him to get the supplies back home. She attempts to convince you of this throughout the game by telling you of his darker side. Angela wants to recruit you and the rangers at the Ranger HQ in order to depose the Patriarch through means that are violent or otherwise. This is the main choice you make throughout the entire game that will decide how the game ends. Do you depose the Patriarch, or do you keep him in power? I'll get into this later on in the video, as it is to do with the ending. For now, I chose to stick with the Patriarch since I've been saving his kids this whole time, but regardless of that choice, Angela still tells us the whereabouts of Liberty Buchanan. So off we go. Liberty is the middle child. She's described as the most competent of the 3 children, having both the smarts to run the area and the ruthlessness to defend it. But Liberty apparently listened to some bald guy talk about Hegelian dialectics on YouTube. She has united all the major gangs in the area and plans on raiding Colorado, turning it into a slave state under her heel as an absolute ruler. This makes her arguably the largest threat in the entire area to prosperity. We make our way down to Yuma County where she and all of her gangs reside. The ultimate goal is to get to Liberty, but each of her gangs has a main base you have to clear in order to reach her. You can go through the entire level and find ways to turn the gangs on each other, or just go in guns blazing, which is what I did. Liberty makes a final stand against our Ranger Wrath with their warbots at the ready. It is at this point you can actually make a crazy choice by deciding to join her. In this ending, you actually storm and take over all of Colorado as their Rangers, with Liberty as its absolute ruler. In this ending, the entire area resides between her heels and yours. Horrifying, but thankfully not what we went there for. To take care of her, you can fight her or attempt to talk her down in order to bring her in alive. Once that's done with, we head back to Ranger HQ to deal with the endgame. On our way back, we're informed that there has been a mutiny back in Ranger HQ. Since we didn't side with Angela Deth, Connie Zhang riled up all the Rangers that weren't a big fan of the Patriarch, and no doubt passed a bunch of speed checks in order to have half the base attack the other half. We rush back, kill all the traitors, put 2 rounds in the back of Connie's head, and then head back into Colorado Springs to help the Patriarch. As we reach the battle zone, we find Angela standing side by side with her traitor comrades, ready to take out my main man Saul. Not happening while I'm still around. We get the option of just jailing her, and doing so has her offer herself in exchange for the freedom of her crewmates. But that didn't fly by me. We get you all alive or dead. Either way, we get you all. After their swift execution at our hands, we have officially upheld our end of the deal with the Patriarch, and he holds up his end. He tells us he will send enough supplies back home to make sure Arizona makes it through this alive. We are now given a choice. Do we stay here in Colorado and help the Patriarch keep the place prosperous, or do we go back home, ready to be hailed as heroes? I chose to stay, and so the game ends. The post-game summary is really sweet, as they have this cowboy man sing a song about the game, with you then being treated to some nice ending slides with art and text about what happened to each of the factions after you were gone.
Hard times in Arizona, with the Rangers and the settlers giving ground.
The ending that I got in this playthrough was the Patriarch ending, where you side with him and keep him in power. It leads to the Rangers being an essential part of the law in Colorado, and being a block of power in addition to the Patriarch, the families, and the Marshals, who can keep them in check. As the Patriarch gets older and older, he relies on the Rangers more and more, thereby increasing the power and the influence over the organization. On top of all that, the Rangers back home got all the supplies they needed. With us here in Colorado, and them there in Arizona, we can ensure that the Rangers can continue to spread to more states, and uphold justice everywhere. It is a pretty good ending, all things considered. The guy actually maintained a civilization in an area where people can live a semi-decent life. The Patriarch did do some nasty things to keep Colorado safe, but wouldn't anyone in his position? Yeah, the punishments on criminals are quite harsh, but have you seen the criminals here? They've got slave traders, cannibals, and even more horrifying groups. You could argue that you've got to be hard in order to maintain law in such a harsh environment. But maybe you don't want to justify his bad actions and think the right thing is to depose him. Then, you might want to side with Angela. Back at the Hoon homestead where we have to meet with Angela, she makes her main points. Number 1, Saul Buchanan is an authoritarian leader, which is not right by default. Point number 2, his rule often leads to the common folk suffering, which we've seen at numerous points in the game. If we go through the process of raiding the Patriarch's secret jail, we bust out Ironclad Cordite. Now this guy illuminates 2 more facts against the Patriarch. Point number 3, he had done shady dealings in the past where he paid off a bunch of gangs with resources so they would stop raiding Colorado. The last and the most horrifying point is that he would at times sacrifice the worst criminals from Colorado to that group that we had to wipe out in Denver. Now, to put it in a YouTube-friendly way, this group makes kites out of the prisoners. What that entails is honestly up to your imagination, and I guess your Googling skills to find the Wasteland 3 wiki. If you take up her offer, you basically do the exact same thing as before, including the riot at the Ranger HQ. But this time, you fight the Patriarch instead of Angela Deth. You can choose to arrest him, kill him, or exile him. It honestly doesn't matter, but you have won the day. Or have you? If you noticed, Angela's argumentation for why Saul should be deposed is very weak and only justifiable if you have a very black and white view of the world. And if you tally up everything she does, she is a blatant hypocrite with no plan for the future. First off, in this ending, due to the instability in the region, Arizona no longer gets the supplies. So you basically have to either ransack Colorado and go back to Arizona with all the Rangers left in your team, leaving Colorado to burn. Or you have to convince the Rangers back in Arizona to move over to here in Colorado, with that leading to Arizona no longer having the protection of the Rangers. If you do neither, you're basically leaving all the Rangers back home to die, which Angela has no problem in letting you do. The prisoner you rescued, Ironclad Cordite, is actually a slaver warlord that Saul tricked and imprisoned. To deal with the gangs, Angela wanted him to take control of them and go lead them to Kansas, which meant that Angela had problems with Saul paying off gangs to stop them from raiding Colorado, but she has no problem having Ironclad Cordite raid an entire area instead of Colorado. You can actually bring this up in an argument against her, which she attempts to explain away. Without the Patriarch there to stabilize the region, Anarchy will in all likelihood rule unless the Rangers move everything over here and attempt to keep things under control. Angela never really had a plan for what would happen after she deposed the Patriarch, and for blindly following her, the game gives you the worst ending out of the 3 major ones. But yes, I did say 3, because there is a way to depose the Patriarch without causing trouble. The thing about the Patriarch is that he was a great leader at some point, but now he's an old man. Sure, he might have some good years left in him, but that is quite unlikely. Instead of having him die at some random point, leaving a vacuum to be filled by chaos, why not attempt a peaceful transition of power? But unlike doing it Angela's way of not thinking at all, you have to actually have a solid plan for the state of the region after deposing him. In order to get arguably the best ending in the game, you have to understand the political structure built by the Patriarch and solve all the problems of the region. You must first build great relations with the other blocks of power in Colorado, namely the Marshals and the 100 Families, while you also need Gideon Reeves as your political advisor. Then you have to talk to Sheriff Daisy and Gideon Reeves in order to get them to support the Rangers when you attempt to take control. A huge problem in the area is the lack of oil, so you have to make sure to resume the oil supply from Denver, one way or another. Then, once you're done with Liberty, you're then called by Angela, who tells you of the possibility of a peaceful transition of power. No mutiny, no infighting, you go in there and replace the Patriarch. This way, you actually have a solid plan for replacing the Patriarch, as instead of violently ripping him out of the system that relies on him, you replace him by slotting in the Rangers. The area is stable enough for you to both stay in the area and keep the peace, while also sending back supplies. In fact, you not only keep the peace, but you rule the area. Now the Rangers control 2 states instead of just 1. This ending is called November Reigns, as the team that you were a part of that was initially sent to Colorado was called Team November. Now this ending is only slightly better in my opinion than the Patriarch ending, because a lot of the things you can do in this ending are things you can do in the Patriarch ending as well. The Patriarch ending is actually similar to November Reigns, as he does depend on the Rangers more and more, which undoubtedly leads to them taking over in the end anyway, as he can't really pass the torch to his crazy children. The only main difference is that in this ending, you get to bring justice to his kids and have the Rangers immediately start out in the area at the peak of their power, instead of rising to it after a violent civil war of sorts. Personally, I have 2 problems with November Reigns. Problem number 1 is that you can't bring justice to Angela Deth for willing to cause loads of innocent deaths without the ability to even hear out how she might be wrong. I mean, the Patriarch holds up his end of the bargain even if you kill one of his 3 children, but Angela is completely crazy, which honestly makes a lot of sense, as in the previous games, she had to watch every single one of her friends and comrades die one by one, with her immediately choosing to be deployed to Colorado without even dealing with any of that trauma. My second problem with this ending is that the Patriarch does not deserve to be arrested, killed, or exiled. The thing is, the Patriarch is the only reason why there is anything resembling civilization in Colorado. If he didn't rally up the 100 families and beat back the gangs, then Colorado would be full of gangs, looters, and just chaos, which would in turn mean that the Rangers in Arizona would have nowhere to get supplies from. Sure, you can sit around and criticize his decisions and the things he had to do, but keep in mind, none of this would exist if it wasn't for him. I've been talking for a while about this ending, haven't I? I love games where you can actually sit down and have a discussion about things and weigh them out to see what's the right call. Honestly speaking, depending on your beliefs, you might think completely different on this than me. Maybe you think Angela is the best ending. Maybe you think that November Reigns is actually a bad ending because the Rangers are now a ruling force. As fair as they are, they might end up being corrupted by the power that they get. Or maybe you don't even care and just want to get your supplies and go back to Arizona. Regardless of what you choose, Wasteland 3 respects your decisions as a player, and it tells you where your decisions have led up to. So, will you be happy about your decisions? Or will you play again to rectify your errors and play straight from the start? Although I have covered the basic story, I've also omitted a metric ton of details that you can only experience by playing the game. There's too much to explore, too much to do, too much to see for me to do justice by this one video. Wasteland 3 is an amazing game with a masterfully crafted atmosphere. It has a great sense of humor and respects your intelligence, rewarding you with rich world building and some of the most fluid turn-based combat I've ever seen. If you loved games like Baldur's Gate 3, the older Fallout games, isometric turn-based combat games in general, or just RPGs built well enough for you to actually roleplay to your heart's content, then definitely give the game a try. My name is Rhoku, and this was my review of Wasteland 3. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.
Let's go.